Everything starts from awareness.
Good leadership is simply catalyst.
Focus on the reason and you'll find inspiration in anything.
This impact continues to grow.
Conversation about intentionality.
If you change nothing, nothing will change.
Hello, everybody, and welcome to this week's episode of Project Spiral. I'm Tim.
And I'm Abigail.
And it is a pleasure to talk with you all on this live studio. Nope, it's not live. There's no studio and there's no people, but we're talking to you. And it's live right now for us, even though by the time you're listening to it, it won't be live. So yesterday, I just have to say, for those of you looking, I'm having a good hair day. And partially it was because...
Wait, Jimmy. Sorry, did you mean for those of you not looking, you're having a good hair day? Or
Yeah.
were you informing the people who are looking that what they're seeing is in fact a good hair day?
I was saying for people who are listening to this on Spotify or Apple, I am having a good hair day. If you are watching this, you can see very self-evidently that I'm having a good hair day. Anyways, I'm having a good hair day. And part of it is because I meticulously fluffed it. I didn't really fluff it. There's just like if I put my hair the right way after a shower, like go like a little bit like floop 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 with both my hands after a shower for like 2 seconds, it'll look good. And partially why I did that is because I had professional headshots done yesterday by Abbie. It was very fun when we were in the park. I felt very much like a model living those dreams. Abbie is a very good photographer.
Thank you.
Her camera skills and film also translate to photos. But there were it was an interesting setting. There were a lot of kids around, and
Well, we were by a school.
we were by a school.
We were literally...
We went to their turf.
Yeah, the children did not come to us. We were literally taking photos outside of a school and in a playground.
Yeah. And Abbie was very helpful. Her favorite command whenever she gives photos is to look normal, which I don't really know what to do with. But this time she's found other ways to have good photo prompts, like laugh, or just like she gets you to think of something funny.
Do I? I think I just said laugh. I don't know if I said
Yeah. I don't know. Or do.
Well,
okay.
Okay. To be fair, I don't tell other people to look normal. I just tell you to look normal because your normal smile is, or like not your normal smile, but like your photo.
My normal smile.
So it's so weird. It's like I was
It's
taking
fine.
of you on Sunday.
This is weird. This is my photo. This is my photo smile.
No, it's not. It's not. That's not your photo smile.
For those of you listening, I'm smiling like a normal person, and it's fine.
Okay, well, I'm the one who's looking at it, and I don't think it looks normal. Well, I'm just telling you to be yourself and relax when I say be normal.
Anyways, if you all have photo taking tips for being normal, please let us know. We apparently need it. But it was very nice of you. I just started performing with these headshots are going to be for a comedy thing that I'm doing at the Magnet Theater, where I am doing musical improv, where you come up with a musical on the spot. So you'll see some of these gorgeous photos with these very natural smiles that Abbie took if you look at headshots for me. So thank you.
And yeah, so do us all a favor. If you're in the area, come see Timmy's show because it's really good.
I would just say, wow, this is a time to support Tim in a time of crisis. A moment of crisis.
A moment of crisis. Okay.
We're now going to talk about real moments of crises. And this time we're going to talk with our lovely guest, and his name is Sam Bliss. And Sam is a really, really cool person. He's an organizer. So he's involved with the local chapter of Food Not Bombs, and the local chapter is called Food Not Cops. Yeah, and they're in Burlington, Vermont. And he basically periodically with a group of people cooks and distributes food for the unhoused population and people with food insecurity and others in downtown Burlington. And he does a lot of really interesting things. He's also a professor. You'll hear him talking about his shepherd practice. And this is an episode that's all about mutual aid. What does it look like when you put things into your own hands and say, hey, we're not going to wait for government to fill the needs and care for all the people that we want. Like, we are going to be the ones that actively do it.
Now is the time. There's people who are in need right now. And yeah, we can't wait for the government or anyone else to save us. Like in Connor's episode, we talked about how we can't wait for the courts to save us, and we can't wait for a change of administration to save us either. It's, sometimes you just have to step up and do it yourself. And that's what a real caring society is all about, is helping your neighbor. And as Sam talks about, there's it's very easy to not do that. Every excuse will come up to procrastinate doing that, but it's really beautiful what happens when communities come together to support their own.
Yeah, so I think you guys will really enjoy this episode. Thank you.
Enjoy.
Hello, everybody, and welcome to Project Spiral, and welcome to the show, Sam.
Thanks for having me. I'm really excited to talk with you all.
So we just did a thing recording this, and Abbie told me that I was too excited about it, and so I hope that everybody heard a gentle red carpet rolled out for Sam.
Okay, well, just to clarify, I didn't say he was too excited. I said he was too loud. And I think there's probably a lesson there about
can I be excited? Excited but quiet? Wow, yeah, Sam is here.
Yeah, that's even better.
Okay, great.
Okay. We're
wow,
not gonna do it
as
again.
opposed to screaming. Okay, great. Sam, we heard about you through our friend Tenzin, who was also on the show, and he was singing your praises. So yeah, I guess we can just start off with, I know you've had a little bit of a crazy week, but just how are you doing? Just how has your week been in general?
Oh my God. Well, I woke up this morning and told my housemates that I'm feeling too many emotions at once. Mm-hmm. Yesterday, had to attend, felt forced to attend Burlington, Vermont City Council meeting, because the City Council was talking about a resolution that would ask our free lunch distribution project called Food Not Cops to relocate from the spot we've been at for over 5 years. And so I was so heartened, and I woke up feeling so good today because all these different community members came out to spoke about how awe-inspiring and important the work that we do distributing lunch as a gift to anyone who's hungry for every reason every day from 1 to 2 p.m. is for the community. And it was so cool that these local politicians had to listen to that. And then there was this amazing moment where it seemed like they were going to strike all language from this resolution that referenced our lunch program. And I went home and it was 10:30 and everything felt amazing because that was a 4-hour meeting. But apparently they kept talking for 2 more hours. No. And put some language back in that wouldn't evict us by Juneteenth, so to speak, but then would instead call on the mayor to continue conversations with members of our group and provide updates to City Council. So I'm really disheartened that they still think that mutual aid and sharing meals together is something that, instead of just governed by community among neighbors, should have anything to do at all with elected officials.
Yeah.
So I'm heartened and disheartened at the same time. I'm having my anxious spring energy where I'm not sleeping as much. I'm doing so much. I recently acquired a small flock of sheep that I'm going to shepherd this summer. It's my second summer doing this. And so I'm really busy riding my bicycle back and forth between home and the land where they're staying, which is 2 miles away, to check on the little guys. So yeah, that's the long story about how I'm doing today.
It's funny, just a brief note, when you in your email said that you had recently acquired a flock of sheep, I city folk that we are, I thought that was a metaphor.
No, literal.
He's a pastor, a church pastor.
I don't know. I thought it was meaning you get your ducks in a row. I thought it was I got my flock of sheep. I don't know. I
Not,
was
but no, it was literal. They were literal sheep.
Not pastor, but pastor, which
pastor,
is shepherd in
pastor.
Spanish.
Yeah, pastor.
And I could picture herding sheep could be very therapeutic, unless one sheep goes you're trying to get them into the gate and then one doesn't. Then I think it would be the opposite.
Yeah, there's moments of frantic energy trying to get these sheep who really, really want to communicate with me and go where I need them to go, but sometimes don't understand what I'm trying to say, especially these ones, because I've been working with them for 4 days at this point. But they already follow me, so that's nice. But no, on the whole, when I'm having my anxious energy that comes with this incredibly busy time of year, hanging out with sheep is like soothing for the nervous system.
I'm curious, like, who act more like sheep, the actual sheep or the politicians you have to deal with?
Ooh, you're really wanting to hit this metaphor on the head, Abbie. You really want it.
I'm so sorry.
You really want to take these sheep to the abstract.
So I'm
just curious.
When we talk about acting like sheep, we typically mean like being obedient and conforming.
Yeah, that's not politicians. More like wolves.
And yeah, but the thing about sheep is that they're like the best at being sheep, and people could never be better than them at being sheep. And they're like super fun and creative and amazing herbalists. They know all the plants and what they need at any given time. And I feel like calling the politicians sheep would give them way too much credit for like thoughtfulness and care and sticking with their fellow beings. Like sheep, all they care about is being together. Like they're like, I'm sympathetic to the like animal liberationists, like incarcerating animals in fences is like bad for their freedom, and who are we to do that? But now that I've worked with sheep for a couple of years, I realized that they care way more about being together than being free, and they'll run back into the fence to be with their buddies if they get out.
Wow, that's really interesting. That sounds like a metaphor for something else.
Yeah, I mean, they just don't have the same concept of freedom that we could like impose on them. I think there's huge trade-offs to keeping them in fences too, because sheep on a open landscape can go get like salt and minerals by licking rocks that they know how to find, but instead we have to have like a little bucket of minerals that they have access to in their fenced-in area as we move them around the different grazable pastures where they get to live and eat. So I don't know.
Sheep are better than politicians, and I'm not going to give up finding this metaphor, but
well, you could.
I'm going to take a break.
You could.
I'm going to take a break.
In the sense that sheep are like pretty predictably going to act like sheep every day, and politicians are pretty predictably going to act like politicians every day. There's a similarity there. They
see that.
There we go.
Yeah.
They
all have conflicts of interest.
And okay, I like that.
All right, so let's. Okay.
Go for it.
Okay. Well, let's back up a little bit. So we've talked a little bit about Food Not Bombs on the show before, but can you just give us a brief introduction to Food Not Bombs and then your chapter, right? Which is that the right word, chapter for Food
Sure.
Not Cops? And kind of how you got involved and how this all started for you.
Yeah, great. Food Not Bombs is an international movement of collectives that share food in parks and plazas in cities and towns around the world to anyone who's hungry for any reason as a protest against the use of public resources for weapons and war. That's the bombs part, instead of meeting basic human needs. That's the food part. So each chapter is autonomous and gets to do whatever we see fit because there's no central organization. Most chapters are not even like incorporated nonprofits or anything like that. It's all volunteer work. That makes these meals happen. So our group, Food Not Cops, grew out of Food Not Bombs chapter that we had here in 2018. So Food Not Bombs in Burlington, Vermont is like many cities where it like has little heydays and then kind of fizzles out when there's less energy. So like around Occupy, there was a really active group sharing food all the time. Sometime in the like 2015 era, there was some group that I don't know much about. And then we started one when it was dormant in 2018, and we're sharing food once a week. Typical Food Not Bombs chapter, small group of like friends, kind of activist vibes, who would like dumpster dive ingredients and go solicit donations from our friends who worked at farms or restaurants or whatever. And then COVID happened. And there was this other group in town called BTV Cop Watch. And what they do is they train people to film the police with their phones during police interactions. Some people would say for like accountability's sake, they would typically say for community self-defense. And Food Not Bombs and Cop Watch, being sort of like anarchist-ish groups, had some overlap. And because of the nature of the work, both groups had relationships with homeless people here in Burlington. And we were concerned when there was this government stay-at-home order, what people were going to do if they didn't have a home to stay at. And so Cop Watch started organizing these little mutual aid distributions. They got donations of food from a few businesses and like got some money raised and bought like toiletries and other stuff and just started asking unhoused people, what do you need? We're going to get it for you. We're here from 1 to 2 every day. Food Not Bombs got involved, and I was like, we could make food happen every day. We thought we were going to be doing this for a few weeks. We thought the pandemic was going to be a few weeks. Those were wild times.
Little did we know.
So anyway, now 5+ years later, we've shared lunch in that same parking garage, or behind that parking garage really, for 1,890 days. And today should be 1,891 if all goes as planned. And many days it is just sort of like a, 12:30 rolls around and someone like happens to walk by the downstairs kitchen in our house where the thing operates out of, and they're like, uh-oh, nobody's here heating the food up. And then somehow it all comes together at the last second. Like, I don't know how it is that we haven't missed a day. There's like a magic to it, because it's like, this is nobody's job. Only a very small group of us is it like really that much of like a passion or vocation. It's just a bunch of people who give a fuck about their neighbors. And we make this like spontaneous daily picnic happen behind a parking garage in downtown Burlington, where what's like the most important thing that's happening is we're building cross-class relationships of solidarity. We are interacting with people who aren't like us, learning to understand their perspectives, trust each other, take care of each other every day. And all these difficult situations come up for which there's no script on what's the best way to act. Like I think in like social justice activist communities, there's often this idea that whatever happens, we know the proper social justice way to respond, or the proper anarchist thing to do. And in this situation, organizing with unhoused folks in a way that like is really more of a ritual than a campaign. Like there's no day that's going to come when people don't want lunch, and so there's no end goal really, brings up all these complicated situations that we need to like learn together how to respond to, and be creative and listen to each other, and not just try to follow some set script. One example I like to talk about is there's a woman who was coming to lunch regularly a few years ago who was attacked by someone else who would often show up at the wall, as we call it, because it's this low brick wall behind the parking garage that we set up our buffet on. And so she was like, I rely on coming to this. I can't not show up. And so she brought a police officer that she trusted to Food Not Cops. And so for 4 days, there was this police officer who knew where he was, and he was like not super comfortable to be there. We like offered him food and he said no and all that. But people put up with it because like we'd love to change Angie's mind about like what it is that might make her safe. But we care mostly that she's like safe and comfortable, and less about our own like sort of anti-police or abolitionist commitments in that moment. It's a long-term project.
Yeah, there's multiple things in what you're saying that I want to ask about. One thing that I really appreciate about what you're saying was like you're doing a specific project around food that's not going to have like a specific end outcome, where it's not like you're gonna fix somebody like the perfect meal and then you're gonna be like, great, problem solved. Like, no,
hunger's over.
Hunger is over. We did it. That'd be really cool if like you could just like, you're like, hey guys, I have one bomb ass meal.
Yeah, I disagree. Like, I don't even think it'd be beautiful. I think that I think eating together every day is what it's about, what like being human is about. I like to say that even if like there were nobody experiencing food insecurity, we should still get together and have this lunch every day. Not everybody in the group really sees it that way, I don't think. I'm food secure, and I go there to eat lunch even when I'm not like doing the cooking or the serving or the cleanup or whatever, because like I hate cooking for one. I like to have lunch with my friends instead, and it's like $0 and all my friends are there. Yeah, I go as often as I can, and so I don't think I'm alone in that regard.
One word that has really stuck out to me from what you've been saying, there's a few, but one of them is anarchist. And I'm really I know very little about anarchism. I just have a picture of a Guy Fawkes mask whenever I see that. I know it's a much bigger world. And what's interesting to me is it seems like you are actively trying to create a network and not waiting for the government to do so. So it seems like you guys are doing something that's a form of care and a form of which I wish was a government service. So I'm just wondering, what does, out of total ignorance, as a total noob to this, how does anarchy inform your work or make it more effective, if that's worded correctly or right.
Yeah, so anarchism is a political philosophy that's based around this idea that people are capable of managing their own affairs. And so we don't need like external coercion to like resolve conflict and like act right toward each other and things like that. And so anarchist activists prefer often direct action to like making demands of their government. Not that we don't, or not that like people who self-identify as anarchists don't go to protests and say, stop doing this bad thing, people in power, or start doing this good thing, people in power. And so like not everybody involved in Food Not Cops or Food Not Bombs chapters worldwide is like a self-identifying anarchist. In fact, thousands of people in Burlington have contributed by donating food, cooking food, eating food, because that's a really important contribution, doing the dishes, cleaning up, donating money to our fund. Like we get all the ingredients as a gift from folks who donate the food, but we have a fund for buying people things that we can't make in a kitchen, like phone cards or tents and sleeping bags or prescriptions. Mm-hmm. So part of that direct action is taking care of each other, like kind of like the most basic. You know, if we're going to even like be healthy and, you know, anywhere approaching thriving to be able to do other important political work, like we need to have our basic needs for shelter, food, water, adequate sleep, loving relationships. And so one of those basic needs is really cool because it can be like grown in gardens and cooked in kitchens, unlike some of the more complicated ones. So that's like a pretty simple one to sort of work on in community, in the neighborhood, without having to ask any authorities for permission. And so there's also anarchist principles in how we're self-organized. So like Food Not Bombs chapters, there's no central group bossing the other chapters around. Like people have written principles like it's supposed to be vegetarian or vegan. Well, guess what? We're not. People ask us for meat. Other people donate meat. And like even the like hardcore vegan animal liberationists among our group aren't like trying to impose that on others. Mm-hmm. You're supposed to have it, Food Not Bombs distributions according to some principles that one of the founders of the movement wrote, like literature to distribute every meal, you know, like propaganda for like the things that like activists in the Food Not Bombs tradition tend to care about, you know, anti-war stuff. We don't, because we're there every day and it's like mostly the same people and new people come and whatever. But like the political lessons are by doing this together every day and learning from each other in like a multi-directional kind of way. I think
I could picture somebody getting like the same leaflet like 100 times. Like
it's so insulting. Yeah. And for other
Food Not Bombs, it's like, okay, we get it.
Thank you. No, I mean like a lot of people like maybe vaguely know we're called Food Not Bombs or Food Not Cops, but they just call it the garage. Like, are you going to the garage today, dude? Or like there's a bunch of people who call it bum feed, but they're homeless, so it's okay that they say that. Like it's like cancel me for saying it on a podcast. Like I don't call it that. But yeah, I mean I have so much to learn from people who've been living on the streets for 20 years. Like one of the things is like don't trust authority, that like we've learned from them, and we're as anarchists supposed to not trust authority, but as the city right now is trying to negotiate, like, oh, we'll help you find another spot and like we'll make sure you have access to running water and all this stuff. Like it's from unhoused people who I'm working with that I'm like, oh wait, they're going to take that away as soon as they give it to us. Like what's important about the spot we're at right now, one of the things is that we never had permission to be there. We just set up. And so it makes it more complicated for them to kick us out than if we were at a spot that they had like given us officially sanctioned access to, that then they could take away, either because like someone who's more conservative becomes the mayor in 2 years from now, or because we can't meet whatever rules or stipulations they set up for us, because it's a bunch of like, we're the lunch of last resort. Like there's a bunch of hardened street people there who've like done bad things. Not to say that's like a majority, like it's a tiny minority, but like we've never asked anybody to leave and not come back. So it like can be a pretty tough crowd. And so like, it's just unlikely that if they gave us a space and set up a bunch of rules for us, that we would be able to like comply with those rules. We like love doing it outdoors in this public space because we don't have the resources to like play bouncer, you know, like all we can do is de-escalate, which most of the time is just let people have the conflicts that they're having because they know each other. And it's like this sort of clash of cultures too. It's like this sort of clash of cultures too, where like there's so many different people who come to Food Not Cops who are all weird in their own ways. But there's, if I could like very loosely categorize people, there's like young activist-y types, most of whom are also like poor and precarious and relying on the food, and like street people, many of whom are like experiencing addiction. And those two cultures, one of them would like really seriously yelling at each other, and like hitting someone would be like an absolute last resort and like not an okay thing to do. And the other group, like is like has totally different techniques for resolving conflicts that work for them, and like trying to intervene just because it doesn't align with my values is a pretty silly thing to do, and it's kind of infantilizing. Like I've seen grown men hit each other and then hug and apologize 20 minutes later, and the whole thing blows my mind before I'm used to it. And it's just like, if I tried to intervene, I'd be depriving myself more than anything of like this opportunity to learn.
So the idea of that like let communities self-regulate, and
yeah, exactly,
communities as opposed to this top down or cop down.
I love that.
Top down.
No, so in
approach, it's really
within.
interesting.
Oh, sorry, I'm cutting you off.
No.
Within Food Not Cops, we're like, we don't have formal leadership positions, and like, you know, nobody's like giving orders that can't be refused. You know, I think sometimes people are like, oh, we like everything needs to be totally leaderless and nobody can tell anybody else what to do, is like a sort of a misinterpretation of what non-hierarchy is. That sometimes like some of the like younger people who've read about activism or gotten involved in protest movements come with this idea that like nobody can tell anyone else what to do. Well, guess what? People show up to the kitchen all the time, just want to be told what to do. Like, I want to be helpful, tell me what to do. And so we have to be comfortable like having leadership. We often say kitchen tops and kitchen bottoms. Because like there's a bunch of like queer freaks who get involved who totally get that language, and they're like, oh yeah, no, that's right. Sometimes I do like being bossed around.
I am totally a kitchen bottom.
I
need to be told what to do.
Good to know, Abbie. Good to know.
Siblings.
Don't look at me.
So sometimes there's like folks who are like brilliant chefs who get in the kitchen, and like the whole thing's going to work better if we just listen to them. But at the same time, like being leaderless is like, as the city's tried to negotiate with us, we've met with the mayor 3 times, and God, I hope she doesn't listen to this. We've sent 3 different groups of people to talk to her, and everyone's like, all right, well, here's what I think, but I don't have any authority in this group. Like being leaderless is also like, is like a strategy externally so that we don't have people to negotiate with.
Right.
Which has been like, you know, historically in like successful protest movements, not having someone to negotiate with has been super important. And honestly, like, you know, they murdered Martin Luther King Jr. You know, they murdered everyone who was important in the Black Panthers. And by they, I mean like the state. And so like being leaderless is also like a safety thing where like, you know, if they see you as a threat, like, it's helpful if they can identify exactly where that's coming from. But internally, you know, everyone's an organizer. Everyone involved in Food Not Cops is like free to start their own initiatives related to that. Like people get really involved in daily lunch, and then they start Bikes Not Cops, community bike repair and redistribution, or like other related things. So we're always having to recruit new people because people like organize their own projects. So anyway, those are some of the ways that anarchist principles inform the work. But again, like it's probably actually a minority of us who'd be like, I'm an anarchist. Or as David Graeber, the late great social theorist, says, anarchy is not an identity, it's something you do.
Wow. Okay. Yeah, which is interesting for me because in my mind, I think before this conversation, it was like what shouldn't happen.
Well, yeah. So when you read the news, like they use anarchy as a synonym for chaos.
Yeah.
And that's like a whole, you know, perfected through centuries of trial and error sort of strategy for delegitimizing anarchist activists who are like, well, actually, we could like do pretty well without a government.
Yeah.
Yeah, like actually it might be less chaotic.
Yeah, I mean, like in the late 1800s, like anarchist activists were like killing members of the ruling class who were prominent. President William McKinley was assassinated by an anarchist. The World War I was started because some important figure in Europe was assassinated by an anarchist. Anarchists haven't been doing that as much recently.
Archduke Ferdinand. We're looking at
Archduke Ferdinand. Anyway, I mean, like a lot of anarchists are total nonviolent pacifists and wouldn't be into those tactics.
Interesting.
It's something, I mean, one thing that I'm really struck by with Food Not Bombs and helping kind of, you help me understand this through this anarchist mindset of not waiting for the government. And I feel like it's one theme that I've been finding through the Trump administration is this idea of just like waiting for an election or waiting for things to get better, and like just kind of like crossing your fingers as everyone gets doged and fired, or seeing kind of democratic norms dropping away and rights. And yeah, the one theme, and I know for some Democratic politicians, a strategy is just to wait it out, like let Trump fall on his face, and maybe that could work. But but also there's already been so much damage done that I don't think so. And even beyond the government, even beyond the Republican Democrat dichotomy binary, I'm just really struck that you guys are taking a service into your own hands. And I'm just wondering of like, when do you know when you're quote unquote ready to do something like that, to say enough is enough, I'm done waiting? Like, when you know you're ready to do something, how do you get over that hurdle of saying, can I do something? Just what does that look like for you when you got involved with Food Not Bombs, when you're saying, no, actually we're going to feed the unhoused population and not wait for Burlington to do so?
Great question. Yeah, to change everything, start everywhere is one, to keep it on the theme of anarchism.
Mm-hmm. Okay.
So like one of these Crime Think, or one of these like kind of punk kid anarchist groups. So like you don't have to start a daily lunch distribution. You could just like start by sharing food with your neighbors, or like offering a gift to a stranger once in a while, or like when a homeless person asks you for money, just give them money and trust that they know what they need, because we are the experts on our own needs. And not judge, if that person's an addict and what they need is drugs, like, I don't know if you've ever been an addict of anything, but like, that's like, if you don't have like hope for a better tomorrow, then like getting your fix is probably the thing that you most need. Like I'm addicted to coffee, for example, and like I'm a total piece of shit if I don't get that fix in the morning. And so like, yeah, of course I want people to like not be buying these and doing these drugs that have like fentanyl and tranquilizer in them that are like giving them open sores and killing them one by one. But like, I don't have the power to change that. So I give my friends money, and I don't even have that much to give, but shit, I spend a lot of it on giving it to people who tell me some elaborate story about what they need money for and then go buy drugs with it.
Well, at least you accept it.
I believe all the stories. I just think that when you're like experiencing addiction, you get money into your hands and like all of a sudden your mind goes to a one-track thing. But how do you know when you're ready to start? I think is a listening practice. And so this is something I've learned from my friend Adam Wilson, and something that maybe I was even practicing before I could articulate it in the ways that he does. He's also like a food gifting practitioner who lives on very little money and is like a farmer and community organizer and produces food that is distributed as a gift in his little town in upstate New York. And he's like one of my closest collaborators, and we go talk about food gifting at organic farming conferences and other cutesy little things like that. And he talks about like just listening to the landscape, to surroundings, to non-human beings, to other people, and the world will tell you what you're needed for. And my friend, longtime activist friend named Emma Schoenberg, who used to live in this house with us, always talks about vocation. And I think that's really important. It's like, I'm really grateful. I may like be really taken by a lot of ideas from the philosophy of anarchism, but I'm really grateful that there's people in my community who like have the patience for bureaucracy and meetings and like changing little things about policy incrementally, or like being lawyers and like fighting tooth and nail on every like fucked up thing that the Trump administration is doing on immigration and the federal government agencies and stuff, because that's not my vocation. I hate that stuff. I think it's incredibly boring. But like, it's a lot of people's vocation. And I think that's so amazing that they dedicate themselves to that. And so I think that like getting over the like imposter syndrome and the hurdle is just like trusting that you're needed and you're important and you have gifts to offer. And like, I don't know, I think that's like a pretty good place to start, when you're dealing with despair, depression, suicidality and stuff like that. I mean, when people tell me that they want to die, I tell them that they have gifts to offer the world and they're needed, and that it would be a real bummer if they weren't around to give those gifts.
Timmy, it reminds me of what Connor was saying about like getting involved in this type of organizing, where he was like, sometimes the people who just like know how to throw a really good party, who can get people in a room.
Yeah.
There's so many different skill sets that are needed. And like, it's always good to learn new things, but you probably already know something or you're good at something that can actually be put to use with helping people.
Yeah.
Totally. I imagine you two are just like identified that you're good about having like meaningful but kind of silly conversations and then do this podcast for 5 years. And that's such a gift.
That's what we do.
Listen to podcasts, but I'm so grateful to get to talk with you, and then other people are going to listen to this, and God, I hope it's worthwhile for them.
I think it will be.
Yeah, my friend Adam, who I was talking about, and I, we like to joke together that like we know what's needed of us, but we will make absolutely any excuse not to go knock on our neighbor's door. Like we have food to distribute, and we have people around us who might accept those gifts, and like we just will come up with any reason why today's not the day. I'll go knock on my neighbor's doors and offer them food tomorrow because it's uncomfortable. But like the interaction's always good. Nobody ever is like, get the fuck out of my face. I don't want your food. What they say is, surely someone else needs this more than me. Which is like kind of annoying because it's like, no, I'm rescuing, like I'm part of this big network that's rescuing this group from the garbage. We need you to accept these gifts because it's like doing a public service to eat this food instead of like demanding that more farmland and fertilizer and fuel and human labor and water is used to produce even more food. Like we should probably use what's right here, right now. But on the other hand, people saying, surely someone else needs this more than me is really cool because it's a special aspect of non-market food that's not for sale. When we go to the grocery store, nobody ever says, surely someone needs this more than me. People say, how can I give as little as possible and get as much as possible? And then we go home and brag to our families and housemates about the deal we got. Look how much cheese I got for $5. Like, look how little I gave and how much I got. Like, it's such an antisocial attitude that being in a market setting puts us in. So I don't know where I was going with that other than that, like, these are some of the things that got me interested in food that's not for sale. Even though it takes more relational work, it's like way easier if you can just like have a, if you're a farmer and you can just like have a wholesale market that you sell your produce to than like having to go out and do this community organizing of getting modern people who don't want to be in debt to their neighbors to accept gifts.
I have a question. This is a slightly different topic. I'm sorry, I'm dying. This is just based off of before we started recording, you made a comment that I'm just like dying to know more about. But because we were talking about hope and the whole idea of the show and everything, and you were saying that you find it very annoying that as a professor, you often feel like the pressure to be really hopeful in your attitudes towards students, and that's like part of like what you feel like as an educator you're supposed to embody, where often like you don't feel like it's genuine. So I'm just curious to hear more about that because that's fascinating. You do so many things and we're not gonna have enough time to talk about all of them, but like, because everything you've talked about so far today to me has sounded very hopeful. The fact that you have helped create this community that somehow, how many did you say? 1,800, 1,900 meals? Like, that's
wow.
Crazy. Like the fact that there is someone or some people every single day for that many years who's like gotten up and made food for other people. Like just hearing about that makes me feel really hopeful. And like this whole anarchist view of like a society that's governed like by the collective, like that's incredibly hopeful. And you've like made this little collective that works, which shows that it's possible. So I'm just curious in like your life, your like lived experience versus like the academic setting, like how does hope play in as
Cool.
an abstract thing or a non-abstract thing?
Yeah. Okay. I want to talk about both those things. Why I'm like aggravated about the like cult of hope and also like what really I find quite hopeful. So I'll go in that order. I teach ecological economics and I like understand the economy as a bunch of social relationships within like a biophysical reality that is subject to everything we know and don't know about ecology and systems and everything we do know about physics. And so this idea that like economic growth can go on and we can keep getting richer and richer by 3% collectively every year in like rich countries, all at the same time as the other 5-6 billion people in the world who haven't tasted any of that development yet are going to get just as rich as us as we are now at some point, like to be a complete farce and a huge distraction about the redistribution of wealth and the like degrowth of our like collective extraction of nature that could support like this imperial mode of living that we're doing in places like the United States. That's super necessary. You have to be careful about how you word this, because in some sense it might sound like rich countries want to pull up the ladder, you know, get to the top and then be like, sorry, there's not enough earth out there for everybody to live like we're living. But no, it's about like, even for like the 1 to 2 billion people who are currently living like high energy consuming lifestyles, that can't go on and also have a stable climate system and also have like a vibrant and diverse community of life with whom we share the earth. In terms of non-humans, the numbers don't actually work. Like, we're already emitting way more carbon than the earth can assimilate, and other pollutants too, and using way more of the earth's like land area and like resources than can like leave room for other species to like survive and thrive. So this like hopeful attitude that like technology is going to save the day and that progress is like sort of a linear unidirectional thing that kind of automatically happens really irks me, because there's like pressure as instructors about topics like sustainability at the university level to like tell a hopeful story about that, about modern societies are better than non-modern societies, and that everybody's going to live in a modern society, and that technology is going to save the day. Right now, there have been so incredibly many wind turbines and solar panels built. Such innovation has happened in like renewable, low carbon energy technology. So much effort has been put into rolling those things out, and the world runs on like 80% fossil fuels right now, which is not that much different than was the case 20 years ago. And it's because of growth mostly. It's because like renewable energy isn't replacing fossil fuels. Renewable energy is just adding. It's just allowing us to have more energy overall, because no one's been like, actually, we should probably leave all the oil in the ground and the coal too. Okay, so that's like an eco-modernism vision of hope that I could go into, that I've been like a student of as like a critic for some amount of time. What brings me hope is that we can live better with a lot less. And like living alongside our own consequences, you know, is that actually like makes for more meaningful human life than like living with the incredible guilt of the unmourned non-human death and human death that supports our lives as Americans living in like urban environment, or, you know, Americans who live in a rural environment live urban lives with longer drive times anyway, for the most part. And so what gives me hope is that like people are like good to each other and they give a fuck. And so in my research on non-market food practices in Vermont, what I found is that Vermonters report getting like 14% of their food in ways other than purchasing it. So gardening, hunting, fishing, foraging, food pantries, government programs that give away free food, free school lunch, neighborly sharing, gifting, and bartering. Those food sources, according to representative samples of Vermonters who we've surveyed, make up 14% of their food supply.
That's so cool. And I'm so jealous of Vermont.
I don't think I trust the numbers that much, because people have no idea. I think about this stuff constantly every day, and I couldn't tell you about my percentages of those different food sources. So take that with a grain of salt. But the thing is, we talk a lot in Food Not Bombs about like solidarity, not charity. We're doing mutual aid. It's way different than your like church food pantries and all that stuff. But like as a researcher, I realized that what we're doing is basically the same. Like, there's all these like retired ladies in the basements of like wholesome Protestant churches in tiny towns all over Vermont and all over America who are feeding their communities because they care, and they're doing this labor as volunteer work, and they're trying to get the foods that people prefer and make a dignified experience for their neighbors who are less well off. And, you know, in our mutual aid group and in a lot of these food charities, there's often a lot of overlap between people doing the labor and people who are relying on that food. So like a lot of things that are called, oh, that's charity, that's bad, by activists like me, are actually not that different than mutual aid. It's just like a different environment and different organizing principles. And that gives me huge hope. Like, people are being good to each other all the time. And so what I've focused on as a researcher is how different settings change the way we act toward each other, the way we think and stuff. So like I was talking about, like in a market setting, we're seeking deals, trying to get as much as we can and basically take advantage of others, and like behaviors that would be seen as totally unethical in other contexts are just like normal behavior when we're buying and selling and producing for sale. Whereas like in a gift setting, we're like thinking of others automatically. And so I'm really interested in non-market economies for that reason. And the fact that they're still there, and economists like me mostly ignore them. And that's why I'm like focusing my research on that, because I think we don't understand how non-market settings work. Like it's really like people who study food sharing go to like primitive societies. I'm using air quotes for those of you who are just listening, of hunters and gatherers who like to study how they share food. And like not that many people have done what I'm doing and study that in like a, you know, the heart of industrial capitalism, which admittedly I'm doing it in like a sort of backwoods corner of people with like a very certain ethos in Vermont, you know, which is a meeting of all these like born and raised Vermonters who have this like culture of we eat from the woods, we share with our neighbors, we do barter. We don't really know how to articulate why we're doing these things because our grandparents did them. And people who grew up in the suburbs of Boston or in New Jersey and moved to Vermont on purpose to do those things and learn those skills. They call it adult onset hunter is like a term that we hear a lot in Vermont. I grew up in Seattle.
Onset hunters. Now, now that you're an adult, you are a hunter.
Yeah. And it's, and they just like, you know, there's all these educated people who use like scientific names to talk about the mushrooms they forage. And then there's all these people who grew up here who know how to identify by sight 4 or 5 different types of mushrooms. And they're doing the same thing, but they like have a way different story about it.
So just briefly interrupting. Now I'm listening to this as an evil city dweller, far removed from land, and just being like, "That's so cool that Vermonters have this figured out. That's amazing. What like what about us as we have our hands plastered to our skyscraper windows? Just like how could we have access to non-markets? Is this something that's sustainable beyond people that have a much closer connection to land that I think it's more possible?"
Yeah, great question.
Wow, Tim, a good question.
Thank you.
I'll tell you the thing that is my first advice to people is stop Venmoing your friends the same $20 back and forth. Just give each other gifts. Like seriously, it's so dumb. Why do you care about evening up? Like that's just, in many cultures, that's a sign that you like don't care about someone and don't want to see them again, is when you're like, can I pay you for that? You know? And I think our culture is like, because technology's made it so easy to like pretend that we're not giving each other gifts all the time that are like uncalculable. Number one, even when you're buying stuff, just like be like, I got this one. I want to see you again so you can get me the next time if you want. Or we'll forget where we're at, and that'll be fucking fine. And if you feel poor and you're like, I need to make sure I get paid back because I'm poor, like talk about it. Like if your friends are making more money than you, they should be buying more than you. I don't know. And so that's like step one. Just like start being intentional about the gift relationships in your life, because they make for like really strong relationships to like be interdependent with each other like we all are, but to be like acknowledging that. Like just because you bought something doesn't mean you're not dependent on whoever grew it and whoever packaged it and whoever shipped it and all that. But there's like a certain acknowledgement when you received it as a gift that like honors that interdependence. Like the non-human beings gave their lives as gifts, and then humans have the choice to like break that cycle of gifts by commodifying something and starting selling it to each other, or not. Not that like individual humans always have that choice. Like a lot of farmers aren't in it because they want to like make money buying food, but that's the way they can, like selling food is the way that they can have a livelihood, you know? And it sucks because then, you know, all the things that farmers tend to care about have to be deprioritized in favor of making sure they have a financially viable farm, so they have a farm at all. So like care for the soil, care for their animals, care for their workers, care for themselves and their family, like take kind of a back seat in like a market setting. The other thing is like the Food Not Bombs is like a urban thing. Like you can get involved with something like that, or like go to like a food pantry. I'm focused on food because that's like a basic human need that I'm passionate about and involved in. But there's all sorts of like non-market things in our lives, and some of them are like, I love like neighborly self-organized ones myself, but also like things that are run by the government. Like libraries are effing awesome. Like don't order that book on Amazon, and also don't buy it at a local bookshelf. Check it out from the library, or tell your library to buy it. Libraries, they all have little forms that you can fill out and say, I need this book, can you get it? And they'll do it. They've got like, librarians love it when people tell them what to add to the collection. And then you're participating in like a non-market economy of sharing through like a public institution that's like as close as we have to anything like vaguely socialist.
Yeah. Wow, it's like a kitchen, be a library top and put in the order. Yeah,
exactly. Yeah, I mean, there's probably other examples too all over that like I'm just like too focused on food and soup kitchens and stuff to even notice. Yeah, I mean, organized events that don't have a monetary barrier to access, that's like a huge one, you know, events that you don't have to buy something to be at, that you don't have to pay a cover charge.
So that's very helpful advice. So I think, just in conclusion, I know you're gonna go back, and I know there's this showdown. Not, I don't. Is it not a showdown? What would you call it? Like maybe a showdown, maybe something where the location where you're distributing food, there's controversy. So and people are trying to push you out. So I'm just wondering of just like what's like back to this week. What's keeping you going this week? How are you, like, how are you all doing in terms of this pushback? And what are you guys working on to keep things moving forward?
Yeah, I realized we started with me talking about this conflict, longstanding tensions with business owners in the city that are now coming to a head, but I never came back and explained that. So it might be helpful.
Please.
So basically, certain vocal members of the business class here in Burlington have been scapegoating Food Not Cops being at the parking garage where the Church Street shopping class. We have this big pedestrian mall in the middle of Burlington called Church Street, and tends to be pretty high end. And these days, all the shops and restaurants there are like oriented toward out of town tourists, people who have money to buy $40 scented candles. Or $50 meals. And so Vermonters are shopping less there, in part because of that. Also because there's been these like downtown construction projects that the city government has done a bad job communicating about. And then also because there's this narrative, especially outside Burlington, but in Burlington as well, that like downtown Burlington is not safe anymore because of homelessness and drug use and theft. To anyone who's been to like an actual city, it's totally laughable that people are saying this about Burlington, Vermont. First of all, first thing, it's like totally safe, but there's a comfort issue. And that is that shoppers don't want to have to look at poor people suffering when they're on their way to buy a $40 scented candle or some high-end outdoor gear or an expensive lunch. And that's understandable. Like, that's uncomfortable to have to deal with economic inequality in the face, to be like, oh my God, there's these people who can't meet any of their basic needs. And I'm like buying superfluous luxuries as a like recreational thing with my friends on a Saturday. That's uncomfortable and that's real. And I think that having the lunch at the parking garage is really important because then it's visible. I think it's important that we look those things in the face. Averting our gaze is not the answer. But so this vocal minority of business owners, all the business owners are concerned about these things. Business is down. People are buying things on the internet. People are not coming to downtown Burlington as much. And when I say business is down, like gross receipts are down like 10%. We're not talking like huge, but they make a huge deal out of it. But there's a few business owners who are like feeding these people. The riffraff is the problem, which is a wild stance to take. So incredible that they think they're going to get like the general public on board with this, because people are so into feeding the hungry. It's ridiculous. It is the most common volunteer activity in the United States of America. Recently, food charity became the most donated to cause monetarily in the United States as well. Like it's very popular what we're doing, and it would be very unpopular for the city to like send cops in and shut us down. And the police aren't really willing to do it as yet anyway, because they know we're a bunch of chaotic anti-police activists who are going to make it living hell for them. But so they're saying that it's a safety issue in the garage to distribute food. I don't really follow the logic. You can read their arguments elsewhere. I'm not going to try to repeat them here. We've been making the case that Food Not Cops makes downtown Burlington safer. Fed people are better behaved than hungry people. People are not like seagulls. They don't just fly away if you don't feed them. People who've done bad things do deserve to be fed, and we all agree on this. Food Not Cops is an alternative to shoplifting, because you come, you eat for free, and then you ask us, people who are like more involved in the organization of things, to help you buy things that you need, and we do our best to help with that. And these cross-class relationships of solidarity, where we learn to trust and understand and love each other, are really important for community safety as well. So that's our basic argument. It's not that like everybody in the group's like, we're never moving from this parking garage. Like, there might be a better space for it, but it's going to be a big trap if the city like offers us something and then they can take it away, as I was saying. So what keeps me going is like really, really seeing just over the past couple of days, like there's all these like latent participants in Food Not Cops who have like participated in like some of our cooking events, or like donated food once in a while, or like gotten bread from the free pantry that's outside our house and stuff like that, who like when they're asked to go to bat for what we're doing, they like show up in force and say really beautiful things about this work. So that, I mean, my love language is words of affirmation. So like this last few days have been a real great experience for me.
Awesome. Affirmation in crisis. Wishing you all the best and solidarity with you all this week. And yeah, what you're doing is so cool, Sam. And with your multiple fields of sheep and food and professing. Is professing a verb? Yeah. Anyways, teaching that, yeah.
Where can the people find you? Like, if people want to follow along with what you're doing or get involved with Food Not Bombs in their own communities, what should they do?
Food Not Bombs Burlington has a lot of Food Not Bombs chapters have like active Instagram accounts. I've noticed. Food Not Bombs BVT is ours, but like just find Food Not Bombs in your own city. It probably exists. I've become kind of a hard to find on the internet. Well, you can like Google me and read things I've written, and I'd be really flattered to hear from people who read things I wrote, because it means a lot to me when people like tell me they liked it or have questions or have criticisms or whatever, just that it gets read at all.
Thank you so much for listening, everybody. You can follow along with us on YouTube, Spotify, Apple Podcasts. We also have a new email address if you would like to talk more with us, either ideas for the show, or if you or someone else want to be on to talk about your hope practice and how you're thinking about hope during this time. Please email us at projectspiralnyc@gmail.com. Our other email still works from before, but that's going to be our new one. So that one more time, that is projectspiralnyc@gmail.com. If you do nothing else at the end of this episode, please leave us a review on whatever platform you're listening to this on. That's the best way for us to continue our outreach. We're also on all socials. We have a new TikTok account, which is really fun. And we post on Instagram and LinkedIn as well. And you could also find out more about us at 2033podcast.com.
Yes, and if you are in the New York area and you want to be a part of our monthly Lyceum gatherings, let us know. We meet once a month and we talk about all sorts of really cool things. Speaking of great communities, I'm really, really proud to be a part of that community, and we'd love for you to be a part of it too. I will say, Tim is a very, very talented improviser, and he was literally born to do musical improv. He's very, very good. So if you are also in the New York area, or if you're not, it's worth traveling for. He performs every Thursday night at the Magnet Theater, and definitely worth buying a ticket. Buy a ticket every week. That's what I'm going to do. Every week, forever, or else. Yeah. Thank you, everybody. Thank you so much, Sim. It's been awesome. Thank you, Sam. This has been great.
Thank you for having me. What a fun conversation. I love talking about the work that I'm up to with Food Not Bombs, especially because it reminds me that it's not just doing the dishes. It's actually for a reason.
Yes, and people want to listen. People care.
Yeah, well, thanks for asking great questions.
This has been a production of Little Scorpion Studios.